So I think influencer marketing, everybody thinks that to get started with it, you need software, you need to buy lots of licenses, you need lots of connections with influencers or celebrities, and I don't think that's true at all. I got started in influencer marketing because I had an e-commerce site, and we would simply email bloggers cold, ask them if they wanted to review our product for free, and without spending anything, I didn't pay the influencers anything, we got over $100,000 in sales from those blog posts, and it was just as simple as emailing. And so I would define influence marketing as interacting and engaging with bloggers, and it doesn't need to be any more, and influencers, and it doesn't need to be any more complex than that.
Anybody can jump in here too.
I guess I'd split it. It's both a marketing channel, a way to reach new customers in a really authentic way, but it's also a brand building initiative and the ability to enhance your brand through the different brands and audiences of different influencers. So I think there's both components.
I agree with that, and then also for me, the way I define influencer marketing in my program at SAP is we are really looking to create content and programs and things that are going to help in the sales cycle and push our customers along through a really trusted voice. And so we work with influencers, and we talked last time a lot about micro-influencers, but really working with these folks to help in the demand gen sales part of our cycle. And so we look at lots of different ways of engagement. Some of it's paid and some of it's unpaid, so we look at both sides of the coin.
For us, for me specifically, it's about developing relationships with people that are sought out, like thought leaders within a space. And really, for me, I don't find it very simple. I think it's a little bit more, I wouldn't even say complex, but because when you get into a relationship, it's that kind of wooing state, right? And then you kind of get into a deeper relationship, right? This isn't a one hit it and quote it kind of thing, right? So for me, it's all about the relationship that you build with folks that are there to, in the end, help you, but you're also helping them.
So I don't mean to be a spoiler, but I think we should stop talking about influencer marketing altogether as an expression. Everybody out. So jokes aside, that term was spoiled 5 years ago. When cloud came about and had this notion of mixing up endorsements with influence. These are two very different things. And the last World Series, LeBron James even made an ad to make fun of himself around Kia and not driving a Kia. That's endorsement marketing, right? Whether you do it with one celebrity or a million celebrities, people that pay for play and like a brand one day, the next one the next day, simply because they're getting paid for this. This is not influence, and the marketing behind it is not influencer marketing. And we tried to steer that ship in a different way over the past 5 years, and we're at a point where I think we need to coin a new term, call it influencer relations, call it something like this, because I think Amisha and Pega, you guys are exactly right. It's about trust, it's about relationship building. So these are the key concepts. I think we need to think about the reason why this thing exists. And the reason why it exists is because it used to be that you had the beholder of truth in our society. A handful of people, the media, politicians, government institutions, and brands through mass media. This system, this paramedical system that is a one-way street, right? We tell you what to think, we tell you what's right and what's wrong, was broken. If you haven't noticed, the last elections should tell you that much, right? So this is a broken system, and what we can do is just to acknowledge that the distribution of trust is vastly different than it used to be, especially with the younger crowd, but not just. When you see guys going through their conspiracy theory websites, that's the same thing, right? So we live in a world that is vastly different through technology. And influence and influencer marketing is just a way to acknowledge it. To say, hey, trust is not within this handful of organizations anymore. It's with everybody. And everybody weighs in at different levels. So influencer relations is really for a brand to say, what's my place in this world now? How do I build relationships with the people that matter to my business and impact it, whether or not I like it? Because my buyers trust them over me. And that's really the fundamental truth that brands have to come to terms with to really fully take advantage of influencer relations.
Thank you for sharing all that. That's good, everybody. Before I go on to the next question, I have a little challenge for you guys, which is the next question, while they're answering it, is for any of you guys to maybe think of an example of maybe an influencer marketing campaign or initiative that may have happened in the past few weeks, in the past few months. Let's just hear your thoughts on like what did you like about it, or maybe what did you not like about it. So marinate on that a little bit. If anyone has an example, I'll call on you guys right after this. But next up was, whether it's influencer relations or influencer marketing, where do we think the market maturity is with this right now? Are we in the beginning stages, like 1, or are we on the later stages at 4? Right? So 1, 2, 3, or 4. Where do you guys think it stands right now?
So I think the B2C marketing, the B2C companies are a little bit more advanced than B2B companies in influencer marketing because they work with, it used to be called blogger relations 6, 7, 8 years ago. People were like, oh, let's get groups of bloggers together and send them, products and things like that. So they started a lot earlier, I think, than B2B brands because B2B brands, the sales cycle is much longer. So now, and like what Pierre was saying, we're not really looking at people to take our product or talk about our product and say buy SAP because that's very disingenuous and people can see that. And our influencers, don't want their audience to see that because then they become ungenuine. They're beholden to their audience. So we look at ways of working with influencers to create conversations that we can be a part of, or thought leadership topics that we get the affinity from that. And I think the maturity for B2B is earlier than B2C. So I think B2B is somewhere between a 1 and a 2, and I think B2C is somewhere between a 3 and 4.
Thank you for sharing. Andrew?
I completely agree with Pierre. I think we're actually kind of in a transitional phase where we're getting a little, especially for consumer brands, we're getting a little oversaturated, and our audience is starting to be able to figure out that there isn't real intent or affinity behind a lot of this influencer marketing. And so what brands are really starting to do is it's the community development. I think that's because brand perception isn't controlled by the brand anymore, and influencer marketing is transitioning into how do I actually form relationships and where's the best place to start. And those people are the people that are now, we call them micro-influencers, but it's really participating in the brand conversation, which I think word of mouth has always been the most effective form of marketing. It just never scaled very well. And with social media, it scales incredibly well. For every one of us is a media company, so brands that acknowledge that and find ways to participate, that's really what influencer marketing is turning into, I think.
So, if you guys promise not to tweet or blog this, I'll share a piece of knowledge that we recently acquired. It's a research report coming out in the next few weeks.
It is recorded, that, right? And live streamed.
Stop it. Alright, so we just got some data on this, and I'm happy to share the top line. In terms of maturity, I believe that it's 97% of companies that are mid-sized to large companies considered influencer marketing as a strategic initiative. 97%. Only half are doing the work today. Of that half, only I think it's 15% are using technology to do. So if you start just going down that funnel, right? People doing influencer marketing at scale, still very small. Early markets, like in the standard maturity curve of market, you see it's early adopting stage. Influencer marketing as a practice, we're probably early majority. That's where we are.
Yeah, I think one thing to just kind of take away from this as well is that, there's called these micro-influencers. They're not necessarily like A-list celebrities or B-list celebrities even, but it can be haters of your brand. And, just building a relationship with them. It can be a subject matter expert in another topic that maybe has a couple thousand followers, but they're an influencer in their space. So I think one thing to take away is that it doesn't have to be A-list, B-list celebrities. It can be just thought leaders or haters or anybody else in your community that is vocal and willing to share a message.
Let me just riff on that real quick, because I think you also mentioned that, you don't have the money to pay. So I don't, even though I work for a big company, I got zero money for my influencer program. However, because for the 2 years that I've been at Aruba, I've developed these relationships, and it's to the point where, and I feel like I'm repeating myself because I said this 2 weeks ago, it started with a handshake and ended up with a hug. How did I do that? I maintained the relationship with them. I am not a tech person by any means. You want to ask, I just found out you have to put an Ethernet cable, I don't know if you guys know what the Ethernet cable is. You have to plug it into an access point, and people just kind of looked at me like, how do you work for this big Wi-Fi company, right? But these guys know anything and everything you could possibly think of, right, about the technology. But what I did was I just maintained the relationship. Whenever they were posting or, talking about us, we kind of listened in on them. And then, we favorite, we'd like, and it got to a point where I literally could direct message them like I did about a week ago. And I said, hey guys, we have an event. And we're doing our first call for papers. We've never done a call for papers for our event before. And we're noticing nobody's responding, right? And our event's not until February. And I'm like, can you guys tell us, like, what's going on? Like, what do you think is the reason why nobody's responding? I'm not paying them. It's just a casual conversation that I've been able to, develop with them because I took the time to date them and woo them and give them the steak, give them the fries, give them cool products, all those things. And in the end, within that day, one of the influencers was actually very well known. He's a contributing journalist for Networking World, and he just wrote a blog. I didn't ask him for it at all. He was like, you know what, here you go, I just posted a blog. Here's probably like 5 of the reasons why these guys aren't doing it, and the other guys also chimed in as well. And we actually got a call for paper and it was accepted, and now we have somebody that's going to be from our industry that is well respected that's going to be speaking at our event. So, no money. It was just me building a relationship with them.
So can I just say, like, there are lots of things right in what you just mentioned, and I think the most important thing around this question would be even the topic of today. When I was saying that we need to reframe influencer marketing around influencer relation, same goes with the notion of campaign, right? If you start thinking, what do the influencers can do for me because I have a product launch, an event, you've already lost that battle.
Yeah.
It's too late. You've lost it. It doesn't matter how you approach it. Your results will be disappointing. And I think the best metaphor that you actually use is a metaphor around dating. Imagine a world where it's a long series of first dates, right? I see all the guys go, yeah. I mean that as a bad thing, right? So you need to build up from one to the next. And if you start thinking of your campaigns, of your projects as an opportunity to build up, to improve your relationship with the same set of people and go back to them and improve from one to the next, this is where you ask can grow from one to the other, to the point that first you tweet, retweet, follow, etc. Then you have a conversation, then there's a publication, then they speak at an event, and before you know it, you have that influencer on speed dial, right? And they know the value that you bring to them as they to you. So that's the core of the practice, and I think you're approaching it exactly right. And then it raises a whole new set of questions for brands, right? Because most brands, when I was mentioning like the 15%, 100%, are not ready for this. And they're not ready for this for 2 reasons. The first one is that brands love the sound of their own voice. And I used to be on the brand side. I used to work for P&G back in the days. And you just like people who like you, right? You don't like the haters. You like the people who like you, and you like people who reinforce your existing message. You don't like people who challenge you to say your product sucks or you did this wrong. So overcoming that initial hurdle is extremely hard for brands. Many of them are not structured to do it, and it really takes the power of will of a CMO, of a CEO to change this. One of our clients that is in this very office in Microsoft, under new leadership, is really challenging their own team to think different, to think about how do we approach relationships with influencers and embrace the fact that maybe some of them like Amazon over Azure. Maybe some of them will like Google over Bing, and that's okay. But this is not standard for marketing teams. It's really hard to grasp.
Go with that, and then we'll go to the next question after that.
Cool. So I completely agree with everything these guys were saying. It's all about relationships. If you are not being authentic, that is a short-run game for sure. Now, that being said, I would be lying if I said we didn't see campaigns that saw ridiculously high ROIs. We're talking like $25,000 of investment yielding $1 million in plus in sales that were fairly not authentic. I don't think these will last forever, and I think they are a short-run game. But I want to talk really quickly about some of the tactical ways that these campaigns are happening today that are yielding the highest ROIs. So a specific example will be real fast. We have a food delivery company. They tie all their analytics into our platform, which is how we get their information. And they had a very small budget. under maybe $25,000 budget, and it yielded over $1 million in sales. That's a very good ROI, and it's not typical. And they were pretty authentic with the influencers. They built relationships with the influencers, but ultimately it was about the tactics of the campaign that yielded the high results. The first thing they did was when they engaged with bloggers, they found bloggers that were really already advocates of their product. That means they looked at their existing followers and they found bloggers on their existing followers. But the tactic they used with these bloggers was they had the bloggers write a review versus their competitor, or a review versus what the blogger was already doing. And they knew these bloggers were already followers of theirs. These knew these bloggers were already customers. So there's nothing inauthentic about saying, hey, can you write a review of what your thoughts on us versus our competitor? But what happened is people would search competitor's name in Google and then see all of these blog reviews of, this food company versus competitor. The result was they siphoned a lot of the competitor's traffic off. And there was nothing inauthentic about it, but the tactic of having the bloggers write about their company versus their competitor siphoned all of his competitor's traffic off. One more tactic they used was rather than tell the influencers that they would just get a straight payment per post, or even take the truly authentic route, which is how it honestly should be, which is don't pay influencers. They set up a program where they had various tiers of interacting with the brand. So they picked the biggest influencers in the space. Like, they just picked the biggest influencers in the space, and they told them, look, we are doing this campaign to build brand awareness and get sales. And if you hit these certain milestones of sales, we'll give you certain rewards. And the rewards they were financial rewards, but some of them were also like, come meet the team of this company, like make your own recipe on our product, and be really engaged with the brand, to the point where those influencers were able to say, like, I'm working with this brand, which is good for their personal brand. So they incentivized influencers financially and building their own personal brand. And so, you have one hyper tactic of like making bloggers put the competitor's name in the URL, and another tactic of like incentivizing the influencer's personal brand and also incentivizing them financially. In this particular campaign, these were the two main pillars, and the result was $25,000 in overall spend yielded 7 figures in revenue. So, there are some tactical things you can do that actually yield high ROI that isn't just be authentic, be genuine.
Yeah, I have to say something, because this is kind of rubbing me a little bit the wrong way. And I'm, not to be controversial, but when you're going after influencers and the kind of the method of, hey, I'm going to give you something if you give me something, right? You're like baiting them almost. Now, I understand it worked, but for you, and that's awesome. However, if I tried that with anybody, they'd be like, what the hell are you doing? Why, seriously, they're kind of,
can't be bought.
I can't be bought. Yeah, exactly. They would kind of just come to me and be like, this is not okay with me. And they'll call you out on it, by the way. They will, and they'll go publicly, and because I've actually seen some other competitors that have come after us, and they might have used an influencer, and then the other influencers would jump in and say, not liking your style, and they would call them out, do all the other fun stuff. So just be very careful, right? These guys are well respected. They have their own egos. It's not something where you're just going to jump in and be like, hey, I want you to do this because I have this for you. It just doesn't work.
You have to like really
well.
find out what's in it for the
For them.
influencer.
Is that the difference between a tech influencer and a food influencer? Different?
I've worked on both B2C and B2B, and yeah, you can, pay influencers to do things, like review your product and incentivize them, but I don't, even in B2C, didn't do that because I wanted to really create a long-term relationship with that influencer and the brand. So I did some things with HP, and they had a product that it was a Vivian Tam netbook. And so we created an influencer program around that where we had fashion bloggers, tech bloggers come and to Fashion Week. They met the designer, they met the product team, and for them, they got the experience of going to Fashion Week. They got exposed to something new and different. It was exciting for them to be part of that program. So that was something in it for them.
Yeah.
Things to think about is, when I talk to influencers, it's almost like a person-to-person relationship you're building. So, one of the questions I always ask them is, how do you like to engage with brands? What is it that I can offer you? Not money, but is it access? Is it access to our large ecosystem? Is it, awareness for yourself in the space? Like, what is it that you're truly looking to build on? And then we work together within our programs to help them get what they need, and we get what we want, but together. It's like kind of building something together, so.
I have a question. So for your HP example, did you pay for them to go to Fashion Week, or did they pay out of their own pocket?
No, so you have to pay for travel and expense, because you can't expect people to fly to New York from all over the world, right? So, but that's clear in their post. They'll say, HP or, SAP has paid for my travel when we invite them to events.
Yeah.
Question.
So I wonder what we would call your example that might differentiate, because I'm the founder of a small business. What I've identified is vloggers on YouTube that need what I have as much as I need what they have. And so I think maybe strategies are different. I apologize, I was outside for a minute and I missed, I think you are with HP?
Correct. HPE. I'm on the BD side.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay. And SAP,
Yeah.
which may be very different. I didn't hear which company you're with, but I think for large and small businesses, we really do have to come at it differently, and also for the kinds of products that we've got. But I haven't come out to pay people to do things, but I've definitely found a great need to find people that we need each other. And so I guess I sort of took his example to mean, like, there's times when we do need each other, and certainly we're all looking for ROI. But I think with smaller companies, our strategies have to be a little different. Just bandwidth issue, and also trying to make your mark in the world too.
I actually somewhat disagree with that statement, and I'm the owner of a small company.
Yeah.
The reason is that I think what changes between an SAP, an HPE, or
That's fine.
yeah,
We already said the full name once.
You don't give me this thing or a company like Tracker, a small business, is the time it takes you to get there. Because if you're a large company, and we have large customers, B2B, B2C, the wealth of opportunities that they have to engage with multiple influencers because of everything that they do. There's a product launch every other day. They have 30 brands or 50 brands and multiple geographies. There's an opportunity every minute to engage with people in a meaningful way. Well, for us, we have a small marketing team and we do the things at the pace that we need to do them. So maybe some opportunities come every month. So it's more, how long does it take you to get there, much more than the approach that I think is very key. And I'll go back to the analogy I was making with dating. Yes, a good date is someone that you have something in common with, where you share a set of values and a sense of purpose. Same goes with the influencers. If you don't have that at the onset, don't do it, right? So if you don't find this common ground, they need you, I need them, they need me, then it's not going to go anywhere, or it's going to go straight the way of endorsement, right? Which is okay, just call a spade, right? I'll give you $100 if you say a good thing about my business, right? But if what you're building is genuine relationships with these influencers, then you start with this common ground. You don't pitch yourself. In many ways, you do the opposite. You pitch them. You help them be better at what they do, understand what it is that is success for them, and you start there. There's an interesting book by the woman who was is now the former head of Virgin America, the CMO, Portergale, that wrote a book. I think it's My Network is My Net Worth, or something like this.
My network, your network is your net worth.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with French accent.
The net grows.
It works. In any case, and in it, one of the key quote, the key things she says that the approach is give, get.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the way you need to think. So when you approach your influencers, don't think about what they're going to do for you. You think about, how am I going to help this person that is meaningful to me get better at what they want? And in the process, it's going to come back to you. It's really the good karma.
I think we're saying the same thing.
Okay.
It's just the tactics. Maybe it's just the approach.
I will happily play devil's advocate, and I will happily take the contrarian stance on this, because if you work at a consumer brand and you message YouTubers or you message bloggers, you don't have to say anything about compensating them. You can mention nothing. You can come at it from a purely relationship standpoint and be extremely genuine about it. But you will find that if you're a consumer brand and you message these YouTubers and bloggers, they will respond to you and they will say things like, I love your brand, I only work with brands I love, but I'm a YouTuber, I don't get paid to create content, I'm not hired by a media outlet to write my blog posts, I need financial income to do my work. And they will tell you that they will happily work with you, they are happy to do it, but that they charge a fee. And so it is unavoidable, and you, yes, you
And I don't
can.
like that.
You-
I disagree with you.
So
Like,
you-
I do it all day long.
You
Like,
can do it.
I do not pay any of the YouTubers.
There's a combination, hold on, there's a combination, let's be clear here,
Yeah,
right?
you can do
Yeah, you can do, it's a both, right? It is, because with our bloggers, right, how we got them is there was another guy who saw, hey, there's a bunch of tech influencers, I should group them together because I know companies would want to build relationships with them, right? We had a relationship already with them because we're all in the same tech space and everybody knows everybody there, right? And all we did, we paid him money and we say, okay, give us these 13 bloggers, bring them in, but here's the thing, we gave them content that they wanted to hear, right? So yeah, we paid to sit them in a room, but the thing was, I didn't come in there with a brand pitch. No way. I went in the tech deep dives, what they wanted to hear. I gave them meaningful content that they then took that, tweeted about it. I didn't pay for that tweet, right? It was at their own court. They could have just sat there and listened to us the whole time, right? It's free will.
I think the difference is, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think the difference is you have people that want to read about HP, you know, whereas like there's a multitude
I have people that don't want to read about us.
Well,
I
you
have
wanna
people
read
that
about
don't like us.
Yeah.
I even had that blogger that writes
Right,
for
but-
Networking World. He did it. He actually is a huge Cisco fan.
But people are generally interested in your industry, you know what I mean? Whereas I work for a company where nobody's ever heard of, so in that case, I think that I'm gonna have to agree with Stanford dropout.
We're gonna bring it back.
What I provide to people is the woman who uses our product, at the end of the day, she's getting the product for free, she's trying to get rid of her hair, and she's
Right.
doing it, and it works, so she's getting free hair removal, which costs a lot of money, if you know
Yes,
about
but you're
it.
still paying them.
Yeah,
But I'm
no,
saying
yeah.
for her,
Yeah.
We're gonna bring it back.
So it's like the difference between like writing, so you write something about Apple, people are
Right.
awesome.
Flying out to an event, paying for vacation, giving them an expensive product, this is paying them. Like, I don't understand.
Hold on, I'm not saying I'm not paying them. I want to be clear. I think
Okay then.
it's the matter of building that. It goes back to, yeah, I totally understand what you're saying, right? It's about building that relation. You find them. You find where they are, right? You go. If these are foodies and they like organic food and they love farmers market, you better have a tent at the farmers market and you better do something that's going to get them to come to you and talk to you, right? But when you're talking to them, you're not pitching them. You're getting to know them. It's all about, in the end, about a community, right? Regardless if it's tech or consumer. Place yourself in there, have meaningful conversation. And understand this, guys, you can go ahead and pay and do that. I'm not, go for it. I do it too, right? To a certain extent. However, I'm in it because I want to build a lasting relationship, right? It's going back to the dating point, right? You gotta kind of, and it's an education process for yourself too, right? And you're learning about them as much as they're learning about you.
So,
That goes back to goals,
give me a
right?
second, Yeah, so, we have 15 minutes left. I want to make sure this is valuable for you guys. If you ever asked me if I would be in a contentious, healthy debate panel, I would never and if anything, this shows that like influencer marketing can be defined in so many different ways and so many different practices.
something, the panelist said something.
So let's go to that, and then after that, I would like to hold off questions because I'm going to ask a few more questions to bring value to you guys, and then we'll have it as a Q&A at the end.
No, I think that's the exact point. I actually think we're talking about different things, and influencer marketing is becoming a big enough deal that there's different tactics. And I think if we're talking really prescriptive, very tactical influencer marketing, where you are controlling the message and you're using that as a channel to reach a consumer, that actually right now, you're seeing better results there than you are from a lot of forms of traditional advertising. Literally giving the brand pitch and using them as a channel to acquire eyeballs. I think that the sentiment I'm hearing is that long tail, as this becomes more and more saturated, it's going to be about the community, it's going to be about the relationships, but I think the fact remains today that both actually work. And the latter especially works when you compare it to the alternatives, which is display ads, retargeting, search spend. You know what, still, even if it's inauthentic or incredibly prescriptive, it's actually still working.
I don't disagree with this. The point I made at the very start of this conversation is simply that let's just call a spade, right? So there is room for endorsement in life. I do not gauge my investment in the influencer marketing we do versus endorsement. I would gauge shitty ads, Super Bowl ads versus endorsement marketing. Why not?
But that's the comparison. It's, and I think
Sure.
influencer marketing can be done both ways.
Okay, we're gonna go through that, and then you're gonna let me ask one last question, so you guys can bring value, and then we'll do a Q&A.
Okay. So if I may add to all of that, what we are hearing is like, there is no one key that fits all.
Correct,
And then there is no
absolutely,
key
yes.
to the lock that will unlock all the locks. So it's like, yeah, that there it is. So it's like, you have to see your brand, your influencers, your product, and then see what strategy works. Try different things. Don't be stuck on this is what it's going to work. I'm only going to build lasting relationship. If it's not going anywhere, okay, try the direct approach to, maybe pay them something. Maybe that's what they're looking for. So try all different things, ways of influencer marketing, and see what works for your brand.
Let me just add real quick. I saw Anthony Bourdain last night, right? And somebody asked, because this is to your point, somebody asked, how do you experience a country? And he says, you don't go follow where everybody else goes. You don't do the hotel foods. You don't do the 5-star restaurants. You got to go the off-beaten path, and you just got to try things. You might get sick, and you kind of just got to be comfortable with getting sick. This is kind of a similar thing. So you kind of, not that I'm saying I get sick a lot, but I mean, but it's just kind of the
But
thing.
unless you tried, you would
Unless you
never know.
try, you don't know. There's
To be
different
perfectly fair, that
tactics.
same analogy is why influencer marketing exists.
Yeah.
It's because everybody got super oversaturated with traditional advertising and brands flooding you, so they went through a new channel, which was each other's peers.
But now everybody's tired of
Going
seeing
on
Kim
here. I like that.
Kardashian
Good
with the
story.
gummy bears.
All right, my last question to you guys, so you guys can have value, is we learned a lot of great best practices, right? And a lot of healthy debates. So hopefully you guys took some takeaways here. Bringing it back to the practical side and contributing to this wall, what are some tools you guys use? And maybe they can explore and they can consider. Aside from your own tool, because we all know your own tool is the most best, awesome thing in the world. What are some other tools that you guys have used that has brought value in the influencer relationship, influencer management, influencer marketing space?
Sure,
Contribute to that.
just real quick, so we don't, because like I said earlier, didn't get a budget, however, when at my last conference, I was actually with me, she mentioned Tracker, and I looked him up immediately that day, and they actually have a free online course that actually, it's really informative, and I loved it. I think the first one I took was what is influencer marketing. So, and obviously I got a demo, and it's amazing, a lot of the things that they do in there, but if I could tell you anything, if you don't know much about influencer marketing, because obviously this is only 1 hour, and there's so much to learn, if there's anything I can recommend for you guys to do, is to go to their site, go to that free online course, and check out that first one, because it does so much explaining about what it is, how you divide up your audiences, and then it goes into the whole ROI aspect. So educate yourselves, and I'm actually having them coming in and educating our whole entire marketing department on what influencer marketing is. Not doing a pitch, but teaching others that will understand, influencer marketing is important. And I'm having them coming in and, to talk to the whole team. Because the first step is educate yourself before you guys want to dive in.
I had to pay the guy $500 for this.
I should have said it, you didn't get paid.
I did not get it. I'll be really did not get endorsed.
Influencer marketing
And so
expert.
I'm very passionate. If you couldn't tell, I'm very passionate about this.
I would start with social listening, because I think to do influencer marketing right, you understand your own brand, you understand your own customer, but you got to figure out the adjacent topics, interests, or concepts that will be relevant to your audience, and then go find the influencers in those.
Anyone that you
Can you name a tool?
Crimson Hexagon, Sprinkler, those are some of the really big guys. A lot of the cheap guys.
Hootsuite is a good one for the smaller guys. That's what we started at in enterprise.
Mention is a free one.
Yeah.
You mean Google's pretty darn good, to be honest. But I think whatever you have from a consumer insight standpoint that understands your persona and your audience.
So you said Google?
Yeah, Google Trends, Google. I feel like there's a bunch of things.
How do you do this in?
You start with your brand. Start with your brand and figure out the affiliated topics.
Any other
So
tools?
social listening tool, Hootsuite, I'll back up Hootsuite for any of the small business owners, for sure.
Yeah, and there's
so-
something we call social mention, which is also good, will help you tell the strength of your brand, where you stand and things like that. And then you took the stovepipe, we actually use Tracker as well, but helps us identify influencers. But the first part is figuring out what in my space is a really hot topic, so we can listen to the best conversations that are happening and find those right influencers.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah,
Sorry,
yes.
the social mention, I have to say, I've struggled with this tool forever because it seems to me, and tell me if that's right or wrong, You have to be a really big company to make that work. If it's somebody small, you get only garbage bags.
Yes,
Okay.
so that's actually
It's free,
something I want to highlight here. There's a lot of enterprise tools in influencer marketing. We're one of them. Yours is $100,000 a year. And then there's a lot of free tools, and it's worthwhile to separate those. And so if you're just getting started, Moz has a tool called Follower Wonk. It's like $20 a month. You can type in a keyword, get a list of influencers, Follower Wonk. There's another one, BuzzSumo, like $150 a month. Type in a keyword, get a list of bloggers. And there's even a lot of free tools like peg.co, peg.co. Totally free, don't pay anything. Type in a keyword, get a list of influencers. And Mention's actually great too. It's pretty cheap, like $20 a month. And so if you guys are on the small business side, those are what I would recommend.
And just one more thing, if you're in a small business, so you can do a search on anything and you can put in the top list of influencers for CPG, and someone has done some sort of list or ranking somewhere out there, and at least will get you started to find some people in a really, like 5-10 minutes even.
Okay, so, because we have only 7 more.
One more,
Okay.
one more on the tool side, and I absolutely agree that starting with social listening. So if you don't do social listening, the influencer marketing will be out of reach. Because if you don't know yourself, then there's not much else you can do. On the more pricey side, I'm actually not a fan of Crimson, but I like NetBase a lot. It's a very pricey tool, but this is one of the few that actually works when it comes to natural language processing and opinion analysis.
Cool. So, in less than 20 words, what would you give as parting advice to people here around influencer relationship, marketing, et cetera, et cetera? Doesn't have to be 20 words, but I'm trying to push you guys to keep it short and concise.
Wasn't it a tweet worth though? Yeah.
Tweet worth, yes.
440 characters.
I think for influencer marketing, no matter how you do it, keep your goal, business goal in mind. Are you doing it for awareness? Are you doing it for sales? What is your end goal? Is it brand awareness? So, and the other thing is, think about the content that you can co-create with influencers. So, you can really make your brand sing in this kind of new world way of reaching customers in a real relevant way. And I was going to use this soundbite, but it's make it real, relevant, and then snackable because the world is fast. So, what you do with influencers, can you take a long form content and just put their quote out and give it to them? Sometimes we give things for influencers that are easy, snackable things that they've done with us so that they can put it out there themselves, or they give us things and we put it out there as well. But it's all about, I think, a two-way relationships as well.
Cool. About 100 words, but it's okay.
Sorry.
Let's try again.
Sorry.
Next one. 20 words. Takeaways.
Digital and social are democratizing branding, and so I think influencer marketing is the first step to actually, rather than controlling and dictating the message, participating with your company.
Fantastic.
I would say decide if you're doing working with influencers and thought leaders, doing the traditional PR media type relationships. Don't pay them. It's really about genuine. Or decide if you're doing endorsement marketing, where the disclosure has to be clear. It's clearly a sponsored post. You're paying for somebody's followers. You're paying them to tweet out your brand message and your brand link. Be very clear which type of influencer marketing you're doing before you start.
Fantastic. Last two.
I don't have you 20 words.
No, I'm editing.
First thing that comes to mind.
So, for those of you who did not raise their hand at the beginning of this conversation that are not doing influencer marketing today, you have no excuse not to. So, my advice is do it at very small scale. You don't need a tool to do this. Pick a handful of people that you can even find manually using one of the few tools that Jesse mentioned to start honing in on the people that have meaning to your business. Start building a rapport with them, and just get familiar with that motion. So there's no reason for you not to do this at small scale today, and start getting going. It's going to be extremely valuable when your boss comes knock on your door and say, "What do we do for influencer marketing?" 6 months or a year from now.
Fantastic.
I'm going to steal this quote because it's stuck with me since the last time we did a talk. And it came from, I can't remember her name, but she works for NetScout. She's going to kill me. But she said, influencers are friends, not food. So just
marinate with that, yeah, it's good.
keep that in mind when you are working with them, right? It's, and again, it's all about the relationship. I think we've said that how many times? I mean, I think we'd all be drunk if you were taking a shot every time we said relationship, right? The other thing too, like I mentioned earlier about the Anthony Bourdain quote, like try it. Start small, understand your, like to Misha's point, have a goal in mind, start small, and just try it out. Don't be afraid. And you know what, and most importantly, don't be afraid to fail. If you're gonna get one person that you're gonna piss off, that's okay, that's a start of a relationship. You can mend, trust me. I've had a few people that, not from what I did, but we've turned some folks around, you know, so just keep that in mind.
So as speakers, as I was a speaker before, we like to know what we did well or what we shared well. Back to you guys, in less than 20 words maybe. Was there something that you guys took away so they can know what we did well? Well, maybe your best
I
takeaway.
thought it was awesome because there was so much, so many different opinions.
Yeah.
So you're not telling us, you know, this what you read every day on the internet, but we can now make up our minds. So thank you.
Make up your own minds. What else? What else?
I was just going to make a comment. I think you had mentioned about follow or walk, and I absolutely love follow or walk, but Analytica is right up on the board for those that you don't really know where to start. They have lists of different things. I know I was on one, content marketing and customer experience. They have lists for everything. If you're not sure who to follow, they do a top 100. So you just look at that list to kind of get you started.
Who has?
It's Analytica.
Yeah,
right here.
Yeah, I know.
They do rankings all the time.
Any other takeaways that you guys took away today? And then questions. I mean, since we have 2 minutes, I would like you guys just to like maybe
I
go.
think I would agree with Natasha, the diversity of opinions was the biggest takeaway of this panel.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Good healthy debate. Any other takeaways before we close this? And you guys can definitely hang around and since it's lunchtime, ask any questions. But any last takeaways for the last minute for everyone to take away with?
Great to hear the stories, the examples.
Good. Fantastic. All right, we are officially completed 1 minute before. Thank you guys for all your